This podcast is for anyone who has ever felt stuck, whether it's a major life transition, a dark night of the soul, or just staying small out of fear. If you've ever struggled to move forward, if you're repeating unhealthy patterns in relationships, or you have a black belt in beating yourself up, you were meant for more, and this podcast is for you. We'll get real, we'll get vulnerable, we'll probably cuss a little bit, and we'll get to the root of it all, your self-worth. With every step, you'll find the courage to rise.
On today's episode, I want to have some fun with the concept of manifestation. Now, before you groan or switch me off, here's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about manifestation burnout. So let's rewind for a second. And you're probably well familiar with the concept of manifestation because it has been talked about a lot all over Instagram, and you're hearing it more and more. And I will say that I am absolutely fascinated by this topic because about 5 or 6 years ago now, I started to explore this concept more deeply because I, like you, saw a lot of people online talking about manifestation. Oh, just this, just that. And I was told many times, oh, just manifest it, as though I could literally go on Amazon.com, order it, and have it overnighted. Well, there's more to it than that. And I, with my highly developed analytical mind, decided I really was going to figure out what the heck was behind this. And so I made the decision that I was going to master this concept of manifestation and figure out what it was really all about, because I felt very strongly that there was so much more to it than this light bypassy sort of way that people say, just manifest it. Well, there's a lot more to it than that. And this is something that I haven't decided exactly what this is going to look like, but it could be a podcast series. I've often thought about writing a book about this because I dove down the rabbit hole 6 years ago and have been falling ever since. But I want to talk today about the idea of manifestation burnout. And if you resonate with this, even with just that phrase, then I think this episode is really going to give you some good context for why. Because what I see, not always, because one can never say always, but oftentimes I see people who get very, very excited, and I was also one of them, which is how I know, who get very, very excited about the idea of manifestation and the idea that we can create our own reality and all the amazing stories that you hear about people and their ability to do these things. And there are about 550,000 ways that you will hear this method and that method and the 369 method and the water method and choose your method. And what I'll start by saying is, if you find something that works for you, and it genuinely works for you, then aces. Now, I can usually tell you what the core of what's underneath it as to why it works, because true for most things, it doesn't really matter how you frame it. It's not really about the method itself. It's about what the method is doing within your brain and body. But the one I want to talk about today is the concept of affirmations. And we see this a lot where people say, oh, well, just affirm your way there, affirm your way there. And there's some truth to that. In fact, there's a lot of truth behind the fact that words have power. Words carry power, and we apply meaning to words, and our self-talk makes a difference, and the words that come out of our mouth make a difference. But sometimes you'll hear these techniques of, just sit down and write your affirmations 50 times, morning, noon, and night, and do it for, everybody has their own time, 5 days, 10 days, 30 days, whatever it is. Write your affirmations 10 times a day, 3 times a day for 30 days, and you'll attract your partner or the money or the job or whatever else. And if that method works for you and you're seeing success, fantastic. However, This podcast is for the people who have written their affirmations over and over and over and over and over again and still feel like nothing in their life is moving. So here's the nuance to affirmations. So the concept of repetition is positive because our brains love repetition. And we're programming ourselves, right? When we're incanting something over and over again, we're writing something over and over again, we're becoming familiar with the words. And that is a positive thing. It's helping to train our brain to accept this idea, whatever the idea is. Let's go with the concept of I am wealthy for now, because a lot of people, I don't know many people who wouldn't want more money. And so if we are writing over and over and over again, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, and you're very diligent about your process and you're doing it 3 times a day and you're all excited and you're doing it and 30 days come and go and absolutely nothing has changed in your external reality. No money has magically shown up. You haven't even found a penny on the ground. And you start to think, okay, well, I must just need to affirm this harder. So now instead of 3 times a day, you do it 5 times a day. And instead of writing it 10 times, you're going to write it 50 times. And you do this for another 30 days. I'll just affirm harder. I'll affirm harder. And you put the Post-it notes on your mirror. I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy. And you're out walking and you're incanting with every step. I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy. And that 30 days passes. And not only has nothing shown up, but you had a major bill pop up that you didn't expect. And your bank account is actually going in the opposite direction. And so now you're really confused because this was supposed to work. This chick on the internet said that if I just wrote this over and over again, that I could create anything that I wanted. And so you might give it one last go, 30 more days. And this time you record that affirmation. I am wealthy. I am wealthy. I am wealthy. And you play it on a loop while you sleep. And you listen to it throughout the day, in between your work, while you're walking, while you're doing the dishes. I am wealthy, I am wealthy, I am wealthy. And every time you sit down to write, you write, I am wealthy, I am wealthy, I am wealthy. You've even changed the wallpaper on your phone to say I am wealthy and to have all these images of wealth. And you've written your affirmations so many times that you've now gone through an entire box of pens and multiple notebooks because you're just doing it over and over and over again. And by the end of that 30 days, nothing has changed. And so at this point, you're discouraged and you're pretty sure that chick on the internet was full of shit. You've decided this just doesn't work for you. You're not meant to be wealthy. Manifestation and the laws of the universe are complete and utter horseshit, and you want nothing to do with it. Or you could be in the stubborn camp, which is usually the camp that I fall into, which is, well, I know I did it 3 months in a row and tried it all these other ways, but maybe if I just do it one more time, it'll work this way. And this is why I say to clients, because I know firsthand, because I was like this too, am still like this too in many ways, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And here's the key with affirmations. Affirmations are not bad. It's good to start to reprogram ourselves, but there's context missing about how it actually works. And so when you hear people talk about writing affirmations or affirming or incanting, there's another piece that you need to understand about why we do it and to check to ensure that you don't have a conscious-unconscious mismatch. Because what happens is when we're just using the words over and over and over again, we're saying, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy. That's coming from only 5% of our conscious mind. And you've probably heard me talk about this before on previous episodes, but we only operate from 5% of our mind consciously, 5 to 7%, give or take. And 95 to 93% is all unconscious patterns, programs, and processes in our body. It includes biological processes, that's your autonomic nervous system, and it's all of your unconscious beliefs about what's true about you and your life. And so once you understand the percentages, when we're only writing down affirmations, it truly doesn't matter how many times you write them, how many times you speak them, how many times you listen to them. You could be sitting there listening to it, writing it, and speaking it all day long, and you're still only going to move the needle a fraction of an inch, if that, if there's still an unconscious mismatch. Which means that while you're saying those affirmations and writing those affirmations, there's some part of your unconscious being that's going, you're not wealthy. You only have $200 in your bank account. You only have $500 in savings. Or you overdrew your checking account last month. You're not wealthy. You're broke as shit. Or, well, we can't be wealthy because wealthy people are bad people, and that's the unconscious key decision you made when you were 5, and you don't even know it's there, but you're not a bad person, so you're not wealthy. These are just examples, but this is what's happening in an unconscious level when we're affirming something and nothing is moving. Now, there's more that goes into the creation process than this, but for the sake of simplicity, we're sticking with the topic of affirmations alone for today, okay? So when there's a mismatch there, it doesn't matter how many times you do it. You're only going to continue to feel frustrated because the harder you try, you're only going to have diminishing returns because we're not actually getting into your unconscious mind to start to reprogram those stories in there about why you're not wealthy or why you're not able to attract money. To say it in a simpler way, manifestation isn't about forcing words until you're exhausted. It's about aligning your state so your brain and body believe that it is already true. Because if you fall into the bucket of manifestation frustration where you've affirmed and affirmed and affirmed, and you've affirmed so hard you've broken a blood vessel, but nothing has changed, then that says that your brain and body are not on board. So this is why what I teach with the biology and the neuroscience is really getting into our belief systems. It's getting into everything that's operating at that unconscious level and starting to pick apart all the things that say, no, that's not true. And sometimes it can be a conscious thought that we have. When we have a very well-developed analytical brain, which I do, so I understand this deeply, it can be difficult to wrap our mind around the idea that money could show up, quote unquote, out of nowhere because we want to find the actual path that it could come to us by. And we want to understand how it can come to us. And sometimes if we can't see it, which usually we can't because that's not how universal magic works, then we fight against it even more. Or sometimes what else can happen in an example like this is we, somewhere in the corners of our mind, feel like the only way that we could receive a financial windfall is if someone that we love passes away and we were to inherit something. And of course, we don't want that to happen. And so we will put an unconscious block up against receiving money because in our minds, we have decided that that is the only way that we could receive wealth. And what happens when we do that is we are, with the best of intentions, ripping the reins away from the co-creation process with universal forces and saying, I know better than everybody else, and this is how I'm going to do it. And I don't think money can come to me in any other way if it doesn't follow this very practical, linear process of coming to me. But I still want it, so I'm going to go ahead and affirm I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy. But deep down, I have some unconscious beliefs that wealth isn't actually possible for me, or that it wouldn't be safe if I received it. And my body actually doesn't believe the words that I'm saying. So it doesn't matter how many times you write those affirmations. You're only ever going to see diminishing returns. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to decide that it's all bullshit. So if you fall into that camp, if you're listening to me and laughing because you have notebooks full of affirmations that either you're still writing in or that you've stopped writing in, then here's my invitation for you. As I said, there's so much more that goes into it than this, but this is specifically addressing this affirmation piece of it. Whatever it is that you've been affirming yourself into oblivion, writing and writing and writing and writing, stop. Just stop for now. You can always pick it up later, but stop for now, because I want to invite you into what is the feeling that you're having as you're doing it. Because if you're writing those affirmations and what's happening is all it's doing is affirming to you that it's something you do not have in your life. Or if you're doing it from the energy of, I have to do this because I have to have the money. And so I have to affirm it. I have to affirm it because I really need that money. It may be true that that money is something that would be very useful to you right now. But this is where we're going to get into the energetics of it, as well as that part of your unconscious mind, which is the more you're affirming and writing those affirmations from a place of not having it, then the feeling that's underneath that affirmation is a feeling of lack. It's the absence of the thing. So really what you're doing when you're in that feeling, or if that feeling is operating underneath, is you're actually reaffirming the absence of the thing. So you may be writing the words, but the feeling underneath it is one of, I'm writing this because I do not have this thing, and I really need to have this thing. And so I'm writing this and I'm waiting for this thing to show up. And all that does is reinforce the fact that this thing is not in your life. So if you want to flip the script, and if you want to continue to use your affirmations, but you want to use it from a powerful place, then there are two elements that you need to incorporate into this. The first thing, as I said, is just take a fucking break from what you've been doing. Just stop and allow yourself to reset. And then I want to invite you into two things. The first is the feeling that you have while you are writing or speaking that affirmation. Because as I said, if you're writing, I'm wealthy, but all you're thinking about is how much you need the money because your bank account is so low, or you have credit card debt, or you have bills to pay, that's not really helping. It's actually making you feel worse. But if you're sitting down and you're disconnecting, and this is the challenging part, you're disconnecting from what your 3D circumstances are showing you. But you sit down to write, I am wealthy, and you're literally feeling into what it would be like if that money were already in your account. The money is already there. How would I feel? You might feel neutral because it's there, so you don't have to think about it. You can put yourself in the place of feeling as though you did just receive a windfall from an unexpected bonus at work or a lottery winning. It is not about how it comes to you. It's about the feeling you have when it does. And so as you're writing those affirmations, what you're doing is you're tuning into what the feeling is if all of a sudden you received a financial windfall. And if you sit down to do this and you feel those little whispers come in, like the yabbits, I call them the yabbits. I think I've said this before, but someday I want to design what the yabbit is. It's a Y-A-B-I-T, and it's a little creature that wants to whisper in your ear all the reasons why this won't work and then why this isn't true. But when those yabbits show up, remind yourself that the whole point of affirmations is to help reprogram your brain. And in order to do that, we need to have the feeling associated with it. So for your exercise, what you're doing is you're really feeling into what it would feel like. And if you have a challenging time connecting with the feeling, which can be true, on my journey, I remember people would tell me all the time, well, feeling is how you manifest. And I'm like, well, what if I don't feel things strongly? What if I just don't? And then some of us can take that to the extreme and then decide that there's no way we can create anything. But what you really need to understand is that it's all going to be unique to you, and your key that you're that you're following the breadcrumbs that are exactly right for you is what feels good for you, uniquely for you. Because it could be that when you think of being wealthy or of having wealth or of having a financial windfall, that you feel a sense of neutrality, that you just feel very neutral and very calm and very peaceful. Perfect. It doesn't have to be an elevated emotion. It's wonderful if it is, but it doesn't have to be. So then you feel into what that neutrality feels like, of just knowing that that money is in your bank account, that you never have any problem paying bills, that you're more than provided for, that there's always more than enough, that everything you spend comes back tenfold, whatever it is that you're feeling into, and you just continue to reinforce whatever the feeling is, from neutrality to elation, and you be with that feeling as if it's already here. And when you're doing your affirmations, speaking them or writing them from that place, the goal really is that even if that thing doesn't show up in your bank account today, tomorrow, or 6 months from now, it doesn't matter, because what you're doing is practicing feeling, being in that state. Because why do we typically want the thing? We want the thing because we feel like it's going to take away whatever crappy way it is that we've been feeling, or however stressed that we've been feeling. And to be clear, I'm not saying that you don't still, of course, you still want the thing. I get it, right? We're not saying that. But what I'm saying is, this is the part that many people miss about this process, which is it is really the act and the feeling and the state that you're in while you're doing it, that when you practice that on a regular basis, that is really how we create. Because ultimately then you reach a point where you really don't care anymore if the thing shows up. I mean, of course you care, but you don't care in the same way that you did before, where it felt like a desperation. So that's one piece of it. And I'm really painting a very high level picture, because this is an entire, it's not even a master class. It's like an entire 10, 12 week program that I could teach on this. But for the sake of today, I really want to paint this high level picture for you. And so that's one piece of it, is the feeling while you're doing those affirmations. The second piece of it is understanding how your brain and your body work. Because with a lot of my clients, we use hypnosis, and I teach them self-hypnosis. And unfortunately, Hollywood has done a number on hypnosis, and, there's fear out there that you're going to, hypnotize you into being a Teletubby or barking like a dog. And really, that's not how hypnosis works. Really what it is it's helping you to get beyond that barrier between the conscious and unconscious mind, so that you really can get into that 95% that's running the show. Because when you're affirming, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, and you have that mismatch where your unconscious mind is going, no, you're not, no, you're not, no, you're not, then you're going to have diminishing returns. But using hypnosis, we break down that analytical barrier so that the things that you're affirming actually can go into your unconscious mind and start to rewrite that old program. Here is a quick practice that you can use to start to work with your unconscious mind. Start with heart-focused breathing. So I know it sounds a little esoteric, or it did to me anyway, when I first heard about this idea of focusing on your heart and asking your heart and being with your heart. And I thought, I don't know what the hell you guys are talking about, but cool. But the truth is, you really don't have to know. It's great if you have the desire to understand more about it, and I would be happy to lead you through it. But at a minimum, focus your attention in the area of your heart space and just imagine breathing a little slower and deeper than usual. And this is helping you to balance out your nervous system. And when our nervous system is pegged in a state of heightened stress, then our brain waves are also pegged at a very particular brainwave that doesn't allow us access to our unconscious mind, because it's not safe, right? We need all of our faculties hyper-focused. And so when you can bring your nervous system back into balance and actually start to relax your physiology, then you're also helping to access that unconscious. So in doing that, then start to imagine whatever it is that you've been affirming until the cows come home. Maybe it's wealth. Let's stick with that example. And you're imagining, how would I really feel? How would I wake up in the morning if I just knew that I had all this money in the bank and I knew I never had to worry about money again? How would I feel when I wake up? And you start to just practice feeling that feeling. And you don't have to do it for a long time. This is just practice. Do it for 90 seconds. Do it for 3 minutes. Do it for whatever period of time you have. The more, the better. And when you do it over time, you're going to see that this will pay you more dividends than any amount of hard focused writing my affirmations. I have to affirm it, affirm it, affirm it, affirm it. Oh God, where is it? So again, this podcast is really for those with affirmation, manifestation, burnout, to help give you a break from what it is you've been doing and to help show you a different path. And I also want to acknowledge that sometimes there can be a fear that if we stop the affirmations, that we're going to stop the creation process. That's not how any of this works. So with so much love, release that, send it on its way as you would a balloon, and remind yourself that what's for you will not pass you by. And the last thing that I will leave you with for this particular episode is to really tune in to how you feel when you're doing these practices. Because if every time you sit down to do your affirmations or do any kind of creation process that you're working through, if you feel a sense of contraction or force in your body or desperation, anything that feels like a constriction, stop, because you would be much better suited to go find something to do that feels really good. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to be connected to what you're working on. It could be that you just want to go out for a run, or you want to go for a walk with your puppy, or you want to sit down with an adult coloring book or a kid's coloring book. Why do we label them adult coloring books? Well, sometimes they are adult because they have curse words in them. Maybe that's just mine. I digress. Go do something that feels good for you, because how you feel is way more important than you sitting down and forcing your way through writing affirmations. Because then you're out in nature, your energetic has shifted entirely. And from that place, if you want to playfully start to imagine what it would be like if you knew when you walked back in the door, you were going to have $1 million in your bank account, then that's a fun way to play with this. So the key is really in how you're feeling and how you're doing it. And if it genuinely feels forced, stop and regroup and try a few of the techniques that we've talked about today.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Courage to Rise podcast. Visit my website, couragetorise.com, for more information on one-on-one coaching, group coaching programs, and other upcoming events. Remember, life's too short not to sparkle. Sparkle on.